This is the Byward Market, which can be the epicenter for people who are experiencing homelessness in Ottawa. 4 of the city's biggest emergency shelters are located within a 5-minute walk from here. According to the city data, between 2019 and 2023, there were close to 2,000 people in Ottawa's shelters every night. People without permanent housing are struggling, especially those with mental health problems and addictions. And the Canadian Mental Health Association says that the intersection of homelessness and mental health can be devastating. They're also critical of the usual steps model that gets people housed only after they've received treatment. That's why in this city they've advocated for a different approach. It's called housing first. Getting people housed, no strings attached.
Okay, welcome to 1414, newest CMHA condo. It's it's a little dated, but we have some renos planned. Kind of looks like we're in an Easter egg, but we'll get it renovated, painted up.
This is Mike Murphy, a coordinator for the CMHA's Housing First condos.
Moving into your own apartment for the first time is a pretty incredible experience.
It's normal apartments like this the CMHA is providing to its clients. This is a newly acquired unit the CMHA is preparing for someone.
You would just want to get out of the shelter. So I've had people move into something really just as bare as this apartment, and we'll get them an air mattress and some blankets or a sleeping bag and some pots and pans and some basic groceries just for that first couple of days. And then often they just want to sleep, rest, recover, because they've been living in chaos for so long. In the next couple months, hopefully this will be someone's new home. You need some stability to be able to address all that underlying trauma. And that's what housing brings. Housing gives them a chance, an opportunity to start rebuilding, to start the recovery. It can be really basic things like you're sleeping better, eating better, just taking better care of yourself, revisiting hobbies and interests that you might have. But it also extends to bigger things.
The CMHA says that the outcomes are better when the supportive housing sites, like the one we just saw, are scattered throughout the city, as opposed to forcing people who need them into segregated group homes where they're less easily able to work on their mental health. So to understand this a little bit more, we went to the CMHA's offices to speak to someone who's in charge of running the program.
Yeah, so the scattered site is one of the foundational pieces of a housing first approach, in that you're aiming to have people housed in kind of natural communities, where they want to live, where they're living in a typical apartment like everybody else. For some people, it's a great step towards school and employment. Like they're in a place where they're feeling better, they're doing well, and their recovery is at a state where they're taking new steps.
Everyone we spoke to at the CMHA emphasized one point. The housing first policies are evidence-based, and that the research shows that it works better than any other approach to homelessness. So to understand this a little bit more, we went to the University of Ottawa to speak to someone who has studied homelessness in the city for decades.
In terms of its effectiveness for ending homelessness, the evidence is pretty unequivocal.
Studies like the At-Home Shea Spa Project demonstration have shown the effectiveness of housing first. Researchers found that people receiving housing first achieved superior housing outcomes.
All of them have found consistently that 80 to 90% of people who receive housing first, and usually they're coming out of a chronic kind of course of homelessness, it ends that homelessness. What's particularly unique about the condominium program is that it creates housing. One of the big challenges for Housing First programs right now across Canada is finding rental housing for people in the private market.
But provided housing can go wrong. Take this 2017 CBC story. A privately owned apartment was used in a different Ottawa housing program. Caseworkers failed to check in on a tenant, and the result was a trashed apartment and a landlord stuck with the bill. But Aubry says the housing first approach isn't to blame.
When it happens, and I'm familiar with those kind of stories, they've shown up in the media. Often it's not housing first that's being delivered to the person. Often it's only housing without the support.
And that seems to be the key takeaway here. It's housing first, but not just housing. It's effective because housing is then followed by support that person needs. And whoever moves into that empty condo unit we visited earlier will have access not just to a new home, but to the CMHA services. They can work with their caseworker to figure out the next best steps. That could be addiction treatment, mental health counseling, financial services, as well as schooling. And all of that was possible because they were housed first.